Welcome back to the Star Wars Show, live from Star Wars Celebration 2016 on StarWars.com. I am joined now by Doug Chiang, Vice President and Executive Creative Director at Lucasfilm, and Phil Szostak, author of the Art of Force Awakens book. Thank you guys for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the art of books are a really beloved part of any Star Wars collector's collection. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of collecting everything and bringing it together and putting it in this form?
I mean, this book in particular was quite a challenge because it's covering 3 years of art development, design development, from late 2012 until the film's release, effectively. So, and there were literally tens of thousands of pieces of art done in that time. So, and this book only has like about 650 pieces. So,
only.
Boiling it down to the essential pieces was a challenge for sure.
And that's one of the great things is that we do so much art because we have to do so much homework. And the art of books are often the only opportunity for the audience to see everything else that's been developed. Because a lot of times, what's wonderful about the book that Phil put together is that it actually chronologues the process really well in terms of showing ideas that we tried, paths that we went down that didn't quite work. And so I think in a nutshell, it really encapsulates the whole creative process.
That's fantastic. And Doug, you've been working on creating the visual design for Star Wars for quite some time now. What inspires you just to sit down and be like, okay, cool, I am going to design a new corner of this galaxy today?
That's a really hard question because, I mean, I love Star Wars. I've been designing Star Wars now for over 20 years. And you know what? The funny thing is I just love the story. I love the story, I love the characters, I love the world. And I remember when I heard that this new film was going to be worked on, I immediately had to sign on just because I knew that I wanted to be involved in some part. And I really wanted to become just another artist because I want to get in there and just draw and design again. And it's funny because Star Wars is so vast in terms of the universe that the visual palette can be very broad. And it's really for us as designers to find that perfect tone of paying homage to the original trilogy and then pushing it and taking a step forward into the future, projecting forward. And I find that challenge really exciting. And for us, it's also, really figuring out, okay, how do we design in a very specific box? Because we often have to think about the limitations of time, resource, and budget. And so it's both of those factors where you're trying to push the creative aspect as far as you can while being very respectful for how we actually execute this.
And I think one of the cool things about The Force Awakens was that you could pick up a lot of the original inspirations from old McQuarrie concepts and then see how they've been kind of twisted and expanded and made into something new. What's that thought process like?
I mean, that's the wonderful thing about what George did was he archived all the artwork. So back in '89 when I started with George, I had a chance to go through and dig through all of Ralph's sketches. And I was amazed at how much artwork he had developed for ideas that never made it to the film. And so for us now, creating these new designs, we have that ability to go back and look at all of Ralph's work and say, oh, this is really cool. Maybe this will apply to the new story that we're trying to do. Because Ralph and George at that time really encapsulated the world of Star Wars. They laid the foundation for it, and we're really just building on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become part of the process now with every new film to go to Skywalker Ranch, into the archive, and look at the original pieces, which are amazing to see in person. They're actually, a lot of Ralph's paintings are quite small, surprisingly small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they're amazing to see in person.
Yeah, no, it's quite a treat because Ralph is so magical about his technique. I mean, he can encapsulate so much with so little.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I really tried to emulate as much as possible. And I have a long way to get there, but I mean, Ralph is the master, and we have a perfect leader for that.
And Phil, when you're compiling the art for this, what sort of collaborative process is there in picking out how to tell the story of the film's development?
Well, the first part of the process for me is always consulting with the artists and getting their selects, and then trying to kind of weave the process into the book to show how designs evolve. And sometimes they pass from artist to artist, and sometimes they go down interesting paths before they finally get to the final design. So yeah, I just try to show that process through these books.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, of all the art books I've seen, I think Phil did a very unique job.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and it's primarily because the amount of artwork and how much you edited it down to tell a very coherent story about the creative process, I think it was really great. Because if you left it up to us, we would have just put in our favorites, and it probably wouldn't have told the right story.
So what were your favorites?
My favorites, actually, I love designing the Jakku desert sequence. There's something about seeing an iconic desert with new sort of imagery on there that was just, it just spoke to me. Seeing the Star Destroyers on there, And then JJ, when he wanted to have the Millennium Falcon chased by the TIE fighters, for me, that just completely sold it. So that was the one sequence that I really wanted to work on, and I actually spent quite a bit of time with.
Your favorite?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. Yeah, Maz's castle stands out as being a really amazing set. Amazing new vehicles in this film, and classic vehicles redesigned for a new era. So, yeah, I mean, endless amazing designs. Yeah, it's really hard to pick one out.
So, were there design elements from past Star Wars episodes that you knew years ago that you wanted to resurrect in TFA, or was it something that was more organic?
Yeah, no. As far as like resurrecting old design, it's a tricky one because it's always driven by the story. So early on in the development, we weren't quite sure where the story was going to go. So we actually had about 2 months of just blue sky concept work, and that was really fun because then that was the opportunity for us to just kind of throw out there a bunch of ideas, imagery that we want to see in the movie, and hopefully one of those will stick. And some of those early explorations actually worked because, I mean, I grew up with the classic films, and I've always wanted to draw the classic films. And so we knew that this film was taking place 30 years after Return of the Jedi. We'll probably see some classic ships. And so for me, it was really like, okay, well, what's the next generation of the X-Wing? And so those ideas, we knew that there was going to be an X-Wing, there's going to be a Stormtrooper, so there were going to be new interpretations of the classic designs, and that really appealed to me.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for bringing this by. It's an absolutely incredible book, and it tells such a wonderful story. And we will be back with more Star Wars Celebration here on the Star Wars Show live stage in just a second.